You're listening to the Dore Report, presented by Alaco Hardwood Flooring. If you're looking for someone trustworthy and reliable to apply new hardwood flooring, look no further than the folks at Alaco Hardwood Flooring. Jimmy Alaco and his staff are the best in town and will get your job done in a heartbeat. No matter what style you're going for, you can trust your flooring job to Alaco Hardwood Flooring. Take a walk through the woods in your home every day. Get your job started today. For more information, log on to alacohardwoodflooring.com or call 615-356-0303. That's 615-356-0303. Welcome into episode 7 of the Dore Report, presented by Alaco Hardwood Flooring. I am your host, Billy Derrick, broadcasting live from Naples, Florida, sending a voice of hello to everyone currently in Nashville right now. I'm down here in the beautiful weather of Naples, Florida, enjoying my fall break here, actually nearby the campus of Ave Maria University, having a great visit here with some good buddies from the hometown of Nashville. And we're talking football here on the Dore Report, presented by Alaco Hardwood Flooring, episode number 7, and it is Kentucky week. It's time to recap last week's game against Florida, and obviously it was a tough loss for the Commodores in Nashville. They were up 21-3. And they just sort of fell apart. Keyshawn Vaughn was injured in the second quarter. He had some great runs at the beginning of that game to kick things off. He had a nice 75-yard screen catch for a touchdown, and he had a long, nearly 50-yard run as Vanderbilt was backed up at their own 2-yard line to get them out of that territory. And that was actually the beginning of the 98-yard drive, the longest in Vanderbilt's history. So again, tough loss to Florida. Final score was 37-27, and the ending result was obviously a loss. But I think if you're Coach Mason, you got to be proud of the way your team continued to fight. Florida is just a better team. They're a better team, and obviously the little fiasco between Mason and Todd Grantham and Dan Mullen was probably the most entertaining part of that game. That's why it was obviously on ESPN right after game day. But again, the Commodores, they take the loss. They fall to 3-4 on the season. And, when you look closely, a little bit closer at this game, some of the stat lines are ridiculous. I mean, Felipe Franks, 19 of 29, 284 yards, 9.8 average, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 49.3 quarterback rating. Those are mediocre numbers, but the running backs for Florida is what really won them the game. LaMichael Pirine, 23 carries, 121 yards. Jordan Scarlett, 16 carries, 113 yards. And also another younger kid, Pierce, who's actually sort of risen onto the scene for the Gators, Damian Pierce, 10 carries, 40 yards. And then Kadarius Toney also had a carry for 27 yards. Receiving, LaMichael Pirine had 4 catches for 93 yards. Van Jefferson, the former Ravenwood standout, 3 catches for 65 yards. He had a touchdown after beating Jawan Williams on an in route. Shermer had a decent day, 51.2 quarterback rating, 18 of 36. He had a lot of incompletions, missed Kalijah Lipscomb a couple times, 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Receiving, Keyshawn Vaughn led the team in receiving yards. 1 catch, 75 yards. That was his touchdown run. Kalijah Lipscomb, 4 catches, 64 yards. Jared Pinkney really needs to start stepping up and performing better. Only 3 catches for 25 yards. Keyshawn Vaughn, 7 carries on the ground, 56 yards. Jamari Wakefield, 8 carries, 32 yards. Blasingame on the ground, 5 carries, 16 yards. And I think a continuing concern for the Commodores is their defensive line. I mean, they continue to get pushed around by any team they play. And, if they want to be able to win this week against Kentucky, that cannot happen, because Kentucky's power run game is one of the best in the country. And if you let a guy like Benny Snell get loose and just get mauled by their O-line, Kentucky has one of the better O-lines in the SEC, quite frankly. And you cannot let that happen if you want to stay in this game this weekend against Kentucky. So once again, last week, Florida defeated the Commodores 37-27. Tough loss, but now they're going to have to bounce back and try to get back to 500 on their own against a top 15 team, the Kentucky Wildcats. Kentucky favored by 11.5 to win this one. Kentucky looking to bounce back against Vanderbilt. Both teams here looking to bounce back. And before we continue talking about this one, let's hear from Derek Mason. Let's hear from Derek Mason and Mark Stoops here in just a moment in their press conferences. But again, you look at this Kentucky team, a lot of talent on defense, offense. Obviously, they're led by Benny Snell. Terry Wilson has been very up and down, inconsistent this season. But again, here is Derek Mason and Mark Stoops.
Excited about getting back to work here this week and getting into a game week. Thought we had a very good bye week. Used it to heal up a bit, get some rest, and get a jump on Vandy, continue to build on some of the things we're doing well, work on some areas that need improvement, and excited about this opportunity here this week against Vandy.
Coach Stoops has done a terrific job, and they're playing well. I know they had a tough loss to Texas A&M, but when you look at this group right now, they're playing with a lot of confidence.
Well, Vandy is a team that is very well coached. I really have a lot of respect for Derek in what he does and how he coaches. And you see the team that's very hungry, that plays very hard and well coached. And, they're just looking for that breakthrough. I mean, they really had a great opportunity to beat Notre Dame. And then, they have a great opportunity against Florida and two very, very good football teams.
They've got a great defense with a great defensive front. Their front guys don't get a lot of credit, but they're big up front and they're physical. And it's definitely going to be a challenge. When you look at the offensive side of the ball, Dorian Baker, has been consistently good as a wideout. Then you take a look at, Benny Snell, Wilson, what they're doing. It's led by, Benny and that quarterback. They do a terrific job of running the football, keeping you off balance, whether it's wildcat, some spread, and they're coming off of a bye week, so I'm sure, they'll have some things for us. They will have self-scouted, not only themselves, but us. And, with that being said, it's going to present some challenges. So I told our guys, right now, we have to perfect the details.
So Vandy's a good team, and they're hungry. They play hard, and we're going to have to play very good football. And that's, that's my message every week. It's about us and what we do and how we prepare and how we respect the game and our preparation, no matter who we're playing. And it starts today.
Well, you heard it first. Derek Mason and Mark Stoops discussing this weekend's game between the Commodores and the Wildcats. Cannot wait to watch this one this weekend between the Wildcats and the Commodores in Lexington. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff. The Commodores are sitting at 3-4. The Wildcats are sitting at 5-1. Kentucky comes off an open date by playing host to a Vanderbilt team that has lost 4 of its last 5 games, but apparently isn't lacking any confidence. Once again, kickoff at Kroger Field in Lexington for the SEC East matchup. 7:30 Eastern Time on the SEC Network. Cole Kubelik, Tom Hart, and Jordan Rogers on the call for that one. Vanderbilt lost to Florida, obviously, as we mentioned last week, 37-27 after building an early 21-3 lead. And then earlier this season, as Mark Stoops mentioned, the Commodores, they were within a play or two of knocking off Notre Dame on the road in South Bend. So the Commodores, they've been a good road team this year. They gave Georgia some fits earlier this season. So again, I think the Commodores, if they find a way to contain Benny Snell in that run game and limit Terry Wilson's ability to get outside the pocket, they can win this game. I think Shermer has to play well. The receivers are going to have to step up. Pinckney's going to have to make about 5 catches. Kalijah Lipscomb's going to have to step up. C.J. Bowler, Tennyson might have to show up as well. And you got Keyshawn Vaughn will have to run wild. If you're Ludwig, you got to give at least 20 carries to Keyshawn Vaughn. It looked like Ludwig was wanting to do that against Florida last week. Obviously, Keyshawn Vaughn went out with an injury, disappointingly enough. But obviously, he tweeted earlier this week saying, "See you Saturday, Vanderbilt fans," and that excited Vandy Nation. So I think you can expect many, many carries for Keyshawn Vaughn tomorrow night against Kentucky. Mason said, in quote, "The toughest thing we're tasked with right now is that we're so close. And when you're close sometimes with the things that are happening to you, you say you've got to stay the course. And that's really what this team has to do. They got to just keep fighting, keep pushing." Meanwhile, for this Kentucky team, they're a top 15 team. They're a really good team. They lost a couple weeks ago, 20-14 in overtime at Texas A&M, but not only gained 4 spots in the latest rankings, while sitting idle last weekend, but now they find themselves as one of 3 SEC East teams with a 1 loss after Georgia's defeat at LSU. So imagine the reaction if Kentucky makes it to Atlanta to most likely play Bama as long as they beat LSU in the SEC championship game. Imagine just the reaction there. Big Blue Nation would flock to Atlanta. The Wildcats will be trying to regroup and sort of recoup some of their running game against a Vandy defense that has given up 521 rushing yards to Georgia and Florida combined in its last 2 games. Kentucky rushed for only 70 yards in the loss to Texas A&M, with junior Benny Snell held to 60 yards. So Snell's going to be ready to bounce. He's going to be ready to run in this one, but Keyshawn Vaughn will also be ready to run. He had a 43-yard run and a 75-yard touchdown catch against Florida last week. As we mentioned, Vaughn is explosive. He's extremely fast. He's a guy, really good player. He's really fast and explosive. So, again, for Kentucky, they're going to have to watch out for Keyshawn Vaughn. But for Vanderbilt, it's a battle of good running backs. Got Benny Snell versus Keyshawn Vaughn. Which running back will perform better? I think that might determine the game. Speaking of Benny Snell, he's among the most productive running backs in the country. He ranks first in the SEC in rushing yards per game. He also has 8 touchdowns on the ground. He has surpassed the 100-yard plateau 3 times this season, and he nearly did it a 4th time, 99 yards against South Carolina. So, again, we all know about this Kentucky offense led by the power run game with Benny Snell, but this defense is really what's been showing up this year for the Wildcats. They have guys like Mike Edwards and Josh Allen at the back end of that defense. Edwards was a first-team All-SEC pick last season as a junior and has 9 career interceptions to his name. Josh Allen, he's one of the more threatening pass rushers in the entire country, so Shermer better watch out for Josh Allen as well as Cash Daniel. They're going to be bringing the heat. 18 total tackles last week for Jordan Griffin versus Florida. That's a new career high. He amassed 13 of those stops in the first half, and his 18 total tackles were the most by a Commodore since All-American Zach Cunningham registered 19 in a 2016 win versus Georgia. So Jordan Griffin has been one of the more consistent linebackers this year for Vanderbilt. I think the big question in this game, as I've mentioned already, is can Vanderbilt stop the run? Last season, Benny Snell ran for 116 yards and 3 touchdowns versus Vandy, and the Wildcats totaled 232 rushing yards in a 44-21 win. With Snell once again hitting his stride in the SEC, the Commodores, they can't afford to let the junior gash them up front once again. Again, I think if Vanderbilt wants to win this game, they have to put pressure on quarterback Terry Wilson. He's still a young guy. He's only a sophomore. He hasn't had to win games on his own this year with Snell behind him. Without Snell, Kentucky's offense is very limited. They have good receivers, as Coach Mason mentioned earlier with Dorian Baker. But again, if Vanderbilt can contain Benny Snell, it can return to Nashville with a big SEC win on the road and some much-needed momentum. So again, this will be a good momentum win for the Commodores to get them back to 500, and maybe see some bright grass here for the Commodores. So if they can get this win, they will go next week on the road to Arkansas, an early kick there, maybe get to 5-4, and then week 10, you look at they have a bye week 10, and then they will get ready to go on the road to play Mizzou. So again, this is a big game for the Commodores to sort of elevate their status in the SEC East, get to 4-4, and maybe have some momentum on their backs. Otherwise, in the SEC, Tulsa will play at Arkansas, Auburn at Ole Miss, Alabama at Tennessee, Memphis at Mizzou, and a top 25 matchup, number 22 Mississippi State at number 5 LSU. Night game at Death Valley, LSU favored by a touchdown to win that one. So once again, obviously last week, tough loss for the Commodores in Nashville at the hands of the Gators. But now the Commodores travel up to Lexington, Kentucky. Going to be a chilly night, but that's how the Commodores like it. They are 3-4, hoping to get back to 500. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff on the SEC Network between Vanderbilt and the 14th-ranked Kentucky Wildcats. SEC Network, tune into this one tomorrow night, folks. Vanderbilt fans will be tuning in and showing up, hopefully, to Lexington. Tom Hart, Jordan Rogers, and Cole Kubelik on the call for the SEC Network. Cannot wait to watch that one. For myself, Billy Derrick, I've been your host. It's been an honor. You've been listening to the Dore Report, presented by Alaco Hardwood Flooring. And once again, for the folks at Alaco Hardwood Flooring, they've done a tremendous job sponsoring us all year, and I commend them for stepping up and stepping into this role. If you're looking for someone trustworthy and reliable to apply new hardwood flooring, look no further than the folks at Alaco Hardwood Flooring. Jimmy Alaco and his staff are the best in town and will get your job done in a heartbeat. No matter what style you're going for, you can trust your flooring job to Alaco Hardwood Flooring. Take a walk through the woods in your home every day. Get your job started today. For more information, log on to alacohardwoodflooring.com or call 615-356-0303. That's 615-356-0303. Once again, for myself, Billy Derrick, I've been your host. It's been an honor. You've been listening to episode number 7 of the Dore Report, presented by Alaco Hardwood Flooring.